Poke the Bear is brought to you by Prize Picks.
And welcome into Poke the Bear, episode 318, presented by Prize Picks. My name is Conor Ryan, and once again, we are joined by the esteemed, the ever-knowledgeable, the perpetually cheerful Ty Anderson of 98.5 The Sports Hub. Ty, how you doing?
I smell like shit. No, sorry.
Yeah,
we're here. We're hanging in there. 6 games left to go. This is the final sort of hurrah of what's been a forgettable, miserable season for the Boston Bruins. I believe this is their second to last Saturday night game at the Garden this year, I want to say. I think we have one next Saturday. I might be wrong on that, though. But
I actually think this is the last Saturday game at home.
Wow. Okay, yeah. So it's been a down year, no doubt about it. But we're hanging in there. We got some stuff to talk about. We will talk about it. That's what we do here. But yes, we are. I think the finish line is finally in sight. First time in my entire career, I think I've looked at the calendar and gone, "Oh God, only 6 more games left. Thank God." You know, like that's a rarity that you actually feel that way.
Yeah, and I think we've hit the point in this season where even on this podcast, I don't know if we're going to do the game-to-game, deep dives or dissections anymore because the team kind of is what it is, right? I don't know how much we have to hop on the Caps game where they played, pretty well. Not pretty well, they still lost, but like had a little bit more of a fight. They weren't getting smoked in that game. Montreal, yikes. Not a whole lot of positives to draw from that one. So, I don't know about you, Ty, but I feel like right now it's all about continuing to max out the draft pick status while like trying to be competitive. Like that Capitals game, if you play that way the remainder of the year and you just don't have the bodies, I'm fine with that. It's like getting smoked 6-1 or, getting embarrassed by Anaheim or losing to San Jose. That's when it gets ugly. And I also think it depends on who's stepping up for you and playing at a high level. If it's these younger guys that are getting an opportunity and they're making the most of it, you're coming up short because the rest of the roster isn't doing well. I can live with that for these final 6 games, right? But I think this probably jumps into our first topic of like a guy like Fabian Lysell. What do you have to gain though if you're keep on losing and also you're just like sitting a guy like Lysell for a game? And again, like he hasn't set the world on fire, but again, when you have this stretch of the season where you don't have a whole lot to play for right now, like other than draft picks, them sitting him on Tuesday, it's like makes you want to pull your hair out because it's just like, all right, even if you think he's cooked, even if you don't think he's an NHL player, let's just see, like, what do we have to look forward to these final, 2 weeks of the season? And I think that's one where it's like you keep on losing and the young guys get minutes, and I'll be happy. Like the bar is that low at this point of the season, and that's why I think that Tuesday game was so frustrating in terms of not giving these guys an extended look.
Yeah, well, let's keep it to sort of, or let's begin rather with what you just talked about. The team having limitations, the team competing, but not having the horses. We've accepted that. At this point in the year, we have accepted that that is what they are. But let's now extend that to a different kind of conversation. You look at their lineup, right? Vinny Lettieri, do you expect him to be on your NHL roster next year?
No.
Patrick Brown?
No.
Cole Koepke?
Probably not.
So why are they in your top 9 and Fabian Lysell is not? Like, that's the question that you have to ask yourself when it comes to these final 8 games when you know you're not making the playoffs. Why are you sitting a guy who you internally project to be on your NHL roster next year? These are free games. This is like a head start on next season. You find out what you find out and you make moves accordingly. However, if you don't do that, and then you take the podium on July 1 or dev camp or training camp and you go, we feel like Fabian's going to break through this year. Guess what? Nobody's believing you. Nobody's going to believe you because you didn't do it when you had the opportunity to do it late in the season. And that's the problem, right? I don't care that the Capitals are a heavy team. Guess what? If Fabian Lysell has an NHL career, he's going to play heavy teams. No one gets nights off every time they play a heavy team. That's not how this league works. And so I also look at the Cap. I just fundamentally disagree with that as well. Yes, they're a heavy team, sure. They have a third line of Mangiapane, Lars Eller, and Anthony Beauvillier, and you're on home ice. You can manage that more effectively than you realize, right? And then what happens is they scratch him, and then they put him in the lineup on Thursday against Montreal. Montreal's bottom six, I would argue, is heavier than Washington's bottom
There's
six.
some big boys there.
Which is like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? Like, he's got to grow. He's got to learn on the fly. And these games mean more to me in regards to Fabian Lysell and his ceiling and his impact than giving him a September 25th game next year against the Hartford Wolfpack dressed up in New York Rangers jerseys. Like, these games matter. If you're not going to use them, why should anybody care? Why should anybody watch? And that's the frustration I think you can have with how they utilized him, or didn't utilize him rather, on Tuesday night against Washington Capitals.
Yeah, and it's something where you bring him back into the lineup on Thursday, and as you said, he's got a tougher matchup in terms of the beef that Montreal has in their lineup. But then, like, it wasn't really a strong game from him, and it's like, all right, how much of that is him taking him out of the lineup or the confidence and all those kind of things? And I get people going to push back of like, he doesn't have any fucking points. Like, maybe he just needed to sit. I'm like, all right, but like at this point, I'm just trying to scratch any sort of silver lining, draw any sort of positivity out of his game. And at the time of him getting scratched, he was what, like second on the team in shot attempts since getting called up, third in scoring chances. And I get that is it's not a tangible.
Yeah, we're nerds.
Yeah. But like, he's trying to make something happen on a team filled with players that, whether it's skill or what have you, can't do that. Like, they're not doing it. They're not generating anything. They're barely getting over 25 shots on goal per game. Like, at the very least, he's not, I'm not saying this guy is like, you're going to put him on a team next year. He's going to go to Carolina and have 24 goals or something like that. But there is a skill set there. There's a reason why he went in the first round. And yeah, he has clear flaws. I think you see when he works at, board battles, stuff like that. He can kind of do some flybys here and there. Like, you want to iron that out of his game, but the speed and the skill is there, and like the will to try to do something. Like, it's one of those things where you looked at what was kind of hampering him early on in his development here is that he was getting walloped, and it's because he was like driving to the net. Like, he's trying to make things happen. And I'm not saying that like, you just got to give this guy a chance and he's going to all of a sudden have you a hat trick in this next game. That'd be great. And I'm not ruling out that like he just isn't an NHL player, but like, why not just give him an extended run here and like see what you can get out of him? Because at the very least, he's trying to make things happen on a team that just the scoring and like the playmaking, the skill just isn't present there. So I just find that frustrating. It's not, I'm not team Lysell thinking that this guy has been just rotting away and he's due for break out next season if he goes somewhere else. But when you have this stretch, as you said, Ty, that like it's consequence free. It's supermarket sweep. You're just running around. You're not paying for anything. You just grab it. Like, you're trying to grab any sort of positivity, trying to get anything good out of this shit end of the season. It's just frustrating when then you're either overthinking it or roadblocking guys when, even if they are an NHL player or not, let's just see. Let's
find out
over an extended stretch.
Let's find out. And that's like, I can't sit here in good faith and tell you that Fabian Lysell is an NHL player. He's a top 6 guy. You got to give him minutes. But you can't tell me he's not either. Like, his detractors can't say, no, he's not. We haven't seen him enough. That is the problem. And you got to have a larger window to make an impact than 5 games. If you only have 5 games to make something happen, you're not going to develop many players. It's super rare that you get guys that come in right away and score, Justin Brazeau scoring in his NHL debut. It's nice when it happens, but often it's fool's gold. I want to see progression. I want to see development. And in my opinion, Fabian was getting closer. He was getting closer. He had a great chance against Anaheim, almost snuck one by John Gibson. Really sneaky, crafty play, which is what he's known to make when he's on his game. He has a breakaway at the end of a shift against Detroit. Can't quite bury it, but he's trying to make plays happen, right? And then you scratch him and you put him back out there. And I felt like his confidence was out the window in that game on Thursday. I did not see the same player that I saw kind of making strides, making positive progression. And it felt like he was in his own head. And this is the problem, right? Like, I don't think the Bruins know how to develop skill guys. I just don't. I think they have a mental block. They have the yips when it comes to a skill guy. If you're a skill guy, you don't produce right away. They're like, no, this is bad. You have to do details now. And again, to your point, as you said earlier, I don't disagree. He's got to work on his details. But you didn't draft him for details. You just didn't. You drafted him for offensive skill, scoring, high risk, high reward kind of plays. And if you're going to beat that out of him, well, then guess what? You wasted a first-round pick. You truly wasted a first-round pick if you draft a guy and then spend 3 years saying, no, don't be that guy anymore. Then what's the point? Why are we here? Why are we doing this? And this is this is the problem, big picture with this team, is that they have not developed a top 6 player since Jake DeBrusk. And before that, it was David Pastrnak. And I got to be honest with you, I don't even want to give him credit for David Pastrnak because I think he was an undeniable talent.
Yeah.
Right. He was going to break through because he's just that good, right? Like, if you were doing a redraft of 2014, he goes second behind Draisaitl. Like, he had natural talent there that you're now seeing come to the table, and you have seen it come to the table. I don't want to give them too much credit for developing him because I just think, again, naturally born, gifted, all-world kind of player. But they haven't developed those kind of guys. And yes, they are few and far between. I will admit they're not picking a ton in the first round, as we know. But don't you kind of notice that pretty much all of these kind of players that they've had have petered out here and then been really good or found their game as a scorer at their next stop? Frank Petrano, Ryan Donato. You want to include, oh God, what's his name? I'm going to drawing a blank right now. But like, there are other guys here that have left here and been productive elsewhere, right? And it tends to be the guys that you harp on, oh, their defense isn't good. Or, oh, like these board battles aren't good. So, okay, we'll just put them in the spot where they can best succeed, right? Like, I think when it comes to like the board battles and the size, I do think about Donato and Vetrano because those are two guys that were not good defensively, were not physical presences, but like they could shoot, they could score, they had speed, they could make plays, but you spent so long beating that out of them that you gave up on them. Oh, Riley Smith is a guy I'm thinking of, by the way. Riley Smith, sorry. But like, you move on from them, and then they blossom elsewhere. It's like, to your point, like Lysell wouldn't surprise me if he did that. You know, if they give up on him and he becomes a 15, 20 goal scorer on some team's third line and there's a matchup mismatch, it's like, oh, wow, good thing you spent all those years trying to make him a ham and egger. That made a lot of sense as a franchise.
Yeah, it's almost like when you've got a team that, you know, again, the Bruins preach that, right? Like the two-way responsible game. And like, there's a lot of guys on the team that generally do that. Maybe not this year defensively because everything's a mess, but like, there's a lot of guys that are, I think you could probably say, is dependable, right? Like, they're not going to necessarily cost you there. But when you have a lineup that has so many guys like that, does that mean you can then take a risk or have a guy that is, you know, the high calorie, like, you know, it's like having like Kyle Schwarber on the Red Sox or on the Phillies now. It's like he will hit 198 with 200 strikeouts, but he will hit 48 fucking home runs. And it's like, you know what? You can have a guy like that in the lineup when the rest of it's pretty balanced. Like, look at like the Washington Capitals, like the old dynasty or not dynasty, but old window they had with, you know, the Backstroms and guys like that. Kuznetsov did not play defense, but like, you know what he could do pretty well? Like, he could score and play and generate chances and do that. And it's like, I'm not saying that, again, I would like to, for the record, I'm not saying that Fabian Lysell is going to be like prime Kuznetsov, but
he's saying again, he's even doing the Eagle right now. That's what you're saying.
That's true. Yeah, I know. You got me. You got to clip this. We'll run with this moving forward. But when you have a lineup that has so many guys that you can project, they're not necessarily going to be liabilities, and you know what you're getting out of them most nights, all things considered. Does that mean you can then roll the dice with the guy who's more of a offensive-minded kind of player, right? Like, can't you live with those kind of risks? And I'm not saying, like, if he's just a fucking disaster in the D zone, like, oh, you got to fix that. But also, like, if he wants to be aggressive with the puck on his stick and try to make some things happen that maybe if you're, like, management being like, oh, I wouldn't do that, like, why not encourage that out of a player who has that skill, right? Instead of, like, trying to make them what they're not. And, again, if you have 4 or 5 offensive-minded, players like that in the lineup, that's when you start taking on water, right? In terms of just your overall structure. Can't have that. But if you're a team that's so desperate for offense, like, why not go for something like that? It's not saying that the Bruins ever should have signed like a guy, should have signed someone like Mike Hoffman, right? Who's got off ice stuff anyway of like why you wouldn't want him on a team, but like why did he have a career? It's because he did one thing and he would score goals. Like you would get 25 to 30 goals off of an empty calorie kind of player like that. And that's not the perfect player, but he fits in a role for where, a team can use just someone they can put the puck in the back of the net. And so if you are trying to get a well-balanced lineup, that should afford you the ability to have someone who maybe is one-dimensional, but can help you in some certain regards. I find that kind of frustrating that there's not any ability to tweak or make concessions when there's clear flaws that are dragging down your team. And a lot of it this year, especially early on, was just no skill and no scoring touch.
Right. And what I would say to aid your argument there as well is that since the deadline, nobody has scored fewer goals than the Boston Bruins, and nobody has given up more than the Boston Bruins. Looking at it as the entire year, they have a minus 55 goal differential. It is the 5th worst in hockey.
Yikes.
So I look at it from the standpoint of if you're making irresponsible plays or a goal is ending up in the back of your net because a guy is trying to create offense, got to be honest with you, don't really give a shit. Don't really care, because I've seen a year of those mistakes happening by players who are not trying to create offense. You're already getting torched by that, and you're icing a lineup of guys that aren't really pushing play the other way. So in my opinion, it's happening regardless. So at least give me that, but with the potential of the upside, the potential that this could end up shitty. It could also end up being a goal. And you need goals, and you need to score goals from guys that aren't 39 and 88. You can't really do that right now, it looks like. And so that's where I land on that, where, yes, I agree that you want him to be more responsible as he develops. Right now, if he wants to be, a bit of a wild stallion and you want to try to rein him in with training camp but get some results first, I'm okay with that. But like the fixation with Bruins hockey, you got to let it go. You got to let it go. There's no other way for me to say it. I'm not saying ice a lineup of 12 guys that can't play a lick of defense. But if that is your core philosophy, then guess what? That 1 cup in 52 years is going to be 1 cup in 62, 1 cup in 72. Like, you're not going to get back on track by getting more defensive. The game is changing. You got to adapt. You got to change with it, or you're going to get left behind. I would argue that they have been left behind already. You got to get out of that mindset of every player's got to be Bergeron. Every player's got to be Marchand. Like, accept those guys for what they were, which is once in a generational 3-way players that helped you create a core. But just like I wouldn't build a team of around what the Bruins were doing in the 50s and the 60s, I wouldn't do it now either. Like, the game is changing. They got to adapt with it. It's just they seem so far behind on that organizationally that is the biggest. That's the biggest reason why I have a question mark about Don Sweeney and Cam Neely. It's not the drafting and the free agency. I mean, it's all encompassing, yes, but mentality wise, it feels like they're still trying to win with a system and a structure and a mentality that is quickly becoming dinosaur levels of thinking in terms of what actually wins here in 2025.
Yeah, no, that is, I think, the big concern in terms of just what is like the vision, like when this team gets back to contention, right? Which is obviously the end goal for management. Let's just get back. What is the team going to look like, right? Is it going to be the big bad Bruins that everyone wants? No, clearly not. You tried doing it this year, did not work. Are they going to be like the Chara era Bruins? Probably not. Are they going to be like the Bergeron, like the late 2010s, early 2020s? Probably not. It's going to be a completely different team. So what is it going to be? And that's why like so much weighs on this offseason in terms of who the coach is going to be, what system they're putting in place, who are they targeting in free agency. If you've got a top 5 pick, you've got a potential blue chip franchise player.
Oh,
what do
God,
you
I
want?
hope so. God,
Yeah,
I hope
exactly.
so.
Potential. I said potential. Don't worry.
Yeah.
But like, what are you trying to get out of that player? Are you going for the two-way guy like a Denoye? Are you going for someone with maybe a higher upside? Like, if it's between James Higgins, who could be a 80, 90 point guy, maybe, or maybe he's not strong enough for the NHL. Do you go for the skill and hope that he's a Clayton Keller, knowing that there's a lot of risk there? Or do you go with like Denoye, who's like maybe a 65 point solid two-way guy? Like the easiest answer here, Ty, is by the way, is they just win the lottery and get Michael Misa, who like honestly is probably just more of an offensive minded guy and is probably a departure, but that guy's gonna rip it up. You look at the way he plays, like that fits the bill. So I think it all comes down to what is the identity of this team. Like, listen, they're the Bruins from now until 2055. They're gonna like be known for being physical, and they're gonna, you know, they're gonna put a priority on that, or I mean a priority, but it's gonna be part of what they are, right? And Bruins fans are gonna love it when the big dude they bring in drops the gloves and does that. Like, it's part of what they are, but it shouldn't be just their only identity, right? You have to adjust on the fly, and I think how the Bruins envision what this next competitive roster is going to look like. I couldn't tell you what it's going to be and what they think it has to be, because as you said, the league just has changed so much over. I mean, Jesus, look at where they were in like 2013 in that Stanley Cup final where they lose to a more skilled Chicago team. That Chicago team now would be viewed as like a dinosaur. They've got like a few skilled players, but then it's a lot of still physicality, grinders, and just a few guys offensively that put you over the top. And they got a dynasty out of it. But like now, play like the Florida Panthers against that Chicago team. Yikes. Completely, it feels like a completely different game.
Yeah. And I do think that we have entered the era of talent wins. Talent is what wins. I think this started with the first Stanley Cup final that was out of the, like, truly out of the pandemic era, right? Like that 2022 Stanley Cup between Colorado and Tampa, it was talent, right?
Yeah.
And it was your big time players leading the way. Kucherov, Stamkos, McKinnon, Makar, Rantanen, like it was star power. And then you go to 2023, Vegas, the best team in the West, in my opinion, in terms of talent, and Florida, which again, had, as you noted, like they got talent and
Sleeping giant, yeah.
East. And then last year, same kind of deal with Edmonton. You got two of the top 5 players in the league on that roster, in going up against Florida again. Like talent is what wins now, right? Like it's. You mentioned 2013, even 2019, the Blues, dinosaur. They would look like a dinosaur now, a team that scores 2 goals and then plays D. Like, no, you got to be high powered now.
Look at the Blues now.
Yeah.
Why they're like, look at just the skill they have all up and down that roster.
And think about the trades that they made to take on maybe depressed assets is too strong, but like Cam Fowler, an imperfect player. They brought him in. He's been good. They bring in Justin Falk, who was on a bad contract in Carolina to a lot of people. Like, it's not, oh man, they got 3 6'7" guys that are beating the bag out of you like they did in 2019. Like, no, it is a more crafty, mobile kind of unit back there. And so, obviously there are multiple ways to win, but at the end of the day, talent is what reigns supreme now. It feels like just across the board. A big reason why I'm not big on the Capitals is I look at their roster and go, not as much talent as what you have in Tampa, Florida, and Toronto even. It's just the way this game is going, and so you have to amass talent. So bringing it home, took the scenic route, as we always do here, which I love. The Bruins have to take whoever the most talented player is with that pick. I don't give a damn about intangibles. I don't want to hear about their battle level, their compete, their wall. I don't care about that. Can they make their line mates better? Can they score? Can they have a creative brain, like a David Krejci, like a David Pastrnak? That's what I got to see. And another one, to be xenophobic here, Canadian. Give me a big Canadian who's been playing in the OHL, the WHL, the Q. I don't care. Talent and Canadian. That's where I'm going with this pick.
All you got to do is get Michael Misa, right? OHL guy, Canadian, who's maybe he like goes to BU or something next year, and then you get the best of both worlds. That way, you'll piss everyone off. So that way, it'll be a classic BU guy that's going to light it up and then go to the Bruins the next year. I feel like Misa's going to go to the NHL this upcoming season. I think he's that good, but I digress. But no, I do think that when it comes to especially this offseason, a lot of it, will also hinge on what that top 5 pick is. And where they are now, right? Like they're number 4. So the furthest they can fall is 6th, could bump up to 1 or 2. Be good to stay in that spot because it does feel like if you hang around that level, right, where you're in the mix for Misa, but if more realistically, if you're still in that tier where you can get one of Frundell, Hagens, Denoyer, you're in a pretty good spot. Even like Martone, who like I don't think they would take, but like from his Martone is who they would look at and be like, that's a Bruin. Because I think Martone is like 6'3" power forward compared to like Corey Perry, pain in the ass to play against, productive in the OHL, not like a guy that you're banking on the potential, is a skilled player, but it's got to be a center. And I think you have to stay around those spots in the draft order to get a guy that you hope, maybe it's not next year, but moves the needle. And it goes back to what we said, weeks ago, right, of this team in the offseason. Don't go searching for like a center if one's not there or you have to overpay for it. If you got a kid who's marinating either in juniors or wouldn't be Providence, but if they have another year or two of development, but you have a guy who's producing, then this offseason, just add talent on the wings. You hope this guy pans out, because if you're overpaying for another centerman or you're trying to make a trade and you're giving up assets and it's not a guy that moves the needle, you're not helping your cause. So I do think it has to be a top 5 player and someone that a top 5 center, and there should be options there so long as they stick to where they are. The way the standings are so packed in, like another win or two like throws everything back out of whack, and all of a sudden you're going into like the Roger McQueen territory, who's a good talented player, but it's got some red flags in terms of health and skating and stuff like that. So
yeah, I think for and this might sound a little bit contradictory to what we've been talking about here, but like the only thing I would request is that if you are drafting a player that you project to be a long-term number 1 or number 2 center, I think that player has to be bigger than James Haggens. And why I'm saying that is because, again, bringing it back to what we've talked about here, the cup contenders, the cup winners, they're built down the middle and they have a horse, basically, as their top line center. Like Draisaitl, big dude, McDavid, big dude, Barkov, big, Eichel, big. Like, who's the best under 6 foot center that you would say is in the NHL? It's probably Jack Hughes.
Yeah,
and we saw his limitations. Exactly. And so I feel like if you are trying to build through the draft, you got to have a center who has these things we're talking about, the skill, the mind, the creativity, but also isn't 5'10" or 5'11" and 160 pounds. Like because you know why? You have Matty Poitras. And so if your center long-term, if your center pitcher is built on 2 guys that are under 6 foot, I don't love your long-term center pitcher. I just don't love that. And so that's where I land with that. That's why I do kind of lean towards a Denoyer. Like I just feel like
6'2".
6'2", talent, like that's where you go for sure. If you can't get a Michael Misa, that's where I'm landing personally. If I'm the Bruins picking, I'm not. They won't even ask me what I think because Don Sweeney's just gonna bonk me on the head. But that's how I feel. But that's what I would do. I think you got to prioritize the skill set, but also got to be a little bit bigger, especially if Matty Poitras is factoring into your long-term plans down the middle.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And something we will see how it continues to progress in terms of where the Bruins sit on the draft order. All of a sudden, these games against like Buffalo and Pittsburgh mean a whole lot down the stretch here, which who could have seen that coming? But that's
I want to see Bob Essensa in net for the game against Buffalo. Shit, he might win that game. But I'm telling you, engineer losses here. I'm a loser. I'm just gonna go out and say it. I am a loser. I don't like rooting for tanking, but I'm here. 76 games. I'm here. You're not making the playoffs, so just lose out, baby. I truly don't care anymore.
Yeah, there's talents in this first round, but there are tiers, and there's like the Misa, and then you got like Hagens, Frundell, Denoyer, and then there's another dip there. And you can get a good player out of like O'Brien, or if you want to roll the dice on McQueen, which like I like the player, but there's risk there. But there is definitely tiers. And if you have this month-long stretch of completely bottoming out and you don't get you fall out of that into that third tier, you'll get a good player, but it's not someone that like Denoyer or Frundell or someone like that, or Misa, definitely. That's the guy that could make an impact in a year or two, and it's someone you can build around. So make the most of it and keep on losing, unfortunately.
Yeah, we're here.
Yes, we are here. Ty, before we wrap things up, let's take a quick break. Hear from our good friends over at Prize Picks. Football season might be over, but there's still plenty to look forward to on the sports calendar, except the Bruins. So hit the ice this hockey season with Prize Picks, the best place to win cash while watching your favorite sports. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash as you run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play just $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this hockey season. Think Connor McDavid will get more than 1 goal next week? Well, Austin Matthews hit for more than 5 shots on goal. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on Prize Picks. Don't miss your chance to cash in as the league's best fight for playoff positioning, unlike the Bruins. Prize Picks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. On Prize Picks, you can mix and match player projections from different sports. Combine your favorite hockey players with players from baseball, basketball, esports, and much more. There's no shortage of ways to participate in Prize Picks. This week, I'm looking at the hockey board and selecting David Pastrnak for more than 1 goal and Brady Tkachuk for more than 4 hits. It's really that easy. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS on the Prize Picks app to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. Shout out once again to our good friends over at Prize Picks. Ty, to wrap this up, if we're looking for anything to keep tabs on in this game on Saturday against the Carolina Hurricanes, which, yikes, could go pretty poorly. The Bruins already, even when they were good, had issues with Carolina, and now they have the roster is what it is. But one thing worth keeping tabs on, Fraser Minten, one of the key pieces in the return for the Brendan Carlo trade from Toronto, one of their top prospects, getting called up, will make his not NHL debut with the Bruins tonight. What are your expectations for a guy like him? And again, I find this encouraging based on the fact that you just want to see what a guy like that can offer at this level. Get some momentum, see what he can do, and build it going into next year.
Yeah, I think that you talk to people down in Providence, be it players, be it staff, be it management, whoever, they feel like they got a good one here. You know, he's a guy who has a work ethic that Toronto was really upset to move on from, because you always need those kind of guys. You know, you have your naturally skilled players like your Matthews and your Marners and whatnot, but like you need those kind of guys, similar to like a Charlie Coyle, right? Like in Boston, where he's factoring in a third line role most likely, but is a worker that helps set the tone for the rest of that line and the team and whatnot. So they were bummed to lose him in Toronto. Just a high character kind of guy. Yeah, you want to see him. You want to see him play well. Obviously, a tough challenge with a team like Carolina, a team that can play a relentless style. You watch the way they move, their motion, their activation. It's head in the swivel kind of hockey. You know, when you're defending that, and you know, being a third line center, you're going to have to defend a little bit. Obviously, it's part of the task there ahead of you. But you know, I'm excited to see him. I really am. I think that this is a guy who is an underrated part of their future, you know, in terms of where he slots in, where he factors in. And if he can pop, and if he can really make an impact here, all of a sudden the conversation for next year gets really interesting in terms of what you have, and do you move out somebody, right? Like, because right now you have Elias Lindholm, you have Casey Middlestad, you have Fraser Minten, and you have Matthew Poitras. Those guys are all centers. You could move them to the wing, but long-term, what you signed them for, what you acquired them for, center. You also have Pavel Zacha, who can move to the wing, will probably play wing tonight, it looks like.
Yeah.
But if he can pop, okay, now are one of those guys trade capital? Like what do you do here, when it comes to all of the centers? Because you're not going to play, none of those guys are fourth line centers. I mean, Lindholm might be, but Jesus, you're not paying him $8 million to be a fourth line center. It's just not going to happen. So if he pops here over these final 6 games, however long of a sample he gets here, like that does change the conversation a little bit in terms of maybe assets you're going to trade or how you're viewing your center position moving forward. So a lot of eyes on him tonight, but I'm excited. I am. I think this is again a player that may have fallen under the radar in terms of all the deadline bonanza that they went through on that deadline day. Like, this is a good piece to add. And so let's see what he looks like now at the NHL level.
Yeah, he's a guy that you hear like the motor, the two-way game. And again, I feel like we're talking about what you're saying, the Bruins should make their entire identity, but he's a guy that I think can be like a glue guy for a long time on a good team, right? Like, he could be your 3C, be really dependable, produce, give you 40-ish points, and be like a spark plug, like a high motor, makes things happen. And sometimes his impact isn't realized off of just looking at like the score sheet, which is kind of like Charlie Coyle in his like best days. It's kind of what he was, right? Like, maybe he'd end the year with 44 points. You see what he does every single night, the effort he brings, the versatility. Doesn't feel like the 44 points. Felt a whole lot more in terms of what he provided. I think that's kind of how they view what Minten could be. I mean, this is a guy that 20 years old, has already played almost 20 games in the NHL on a pretty strong Toronto forward grouping there. As you said, they loved him there. Was the captain for Team Canada in the World Juniors. This seemed like just a good guy to add to the mix. He maybe isn't a top 6 talent, but someone that if he hits, and he's a guy that seems like it's easier to project him as an NHL player in terms of his game. If you're looking at like just building out this team and finding guys that fill holes and you don't have to worry about it, like if Minten's your 3C, you're good, right? Same with like Charlie Coyle. Yes, he was put up into like a top 6 role at times, like on the wing, and it's not great. And like he did well last year, as top 6 center, but how much like stability did you have when every year you go into training camp, be like, oh, we got Coyle at 3C. We'll build around him. He's going to drive play with name who, and you'll be fine. Now, that's one line you don't have to worry about. And it's like the same with, having a top line. You got David Pastrnak and you insert player here, and most likely they're going to be good. You don't have to worry about it, right? And so if you're able to have 2 guys that you can plug into your lineup at different spots on the depth chart, and you don't have to worry about it moving forward, that helps you just starting to like what this team needs beyond just the skill. They just need everyday NHL talent across the roster that can pull on the rope, right? Like, you don't listen. It'd be great if you got Besser and Ehlers and Marner and Pionk, and that'd be great.
Turn the cap off. Turn it off, baby.
Yeah, it'd be great. But you just need like more geekies all across your lineup, right? Like, you just need everyday NHL guys that can contribute, can hold their own, and can help you in a variety of ways. And I think Minten's one of those guys. And if you're able to get a player like that, who's 20 years old, who you've got control of in terms of his contract for the next little while here, and has more to give, yeah, I'm excited. That he's not maybe the flashiest guy, but I think Bruins fans, once you watch the way he plays, I think you're going to be really encouraged by what he could be on this team, especially moving forward.
Yeah, and to bring it back to like what you're talking about, like I do think that, if I were to look back on it, and obviously don't have like the exact like lines in front of me and all of that, but like when the Lightning were the Lightning, right? Like they had their forward grouping. Obviously, you had Kucherov and you had Point, you had Stamkos, but like you had Andre Palat, you had Alex Killorn, you had guys that were in that geeky kind of mold where it's like, yeah, they're going to max out at probably 18, 19, on a good year, 25 goals, but like they're going to just be productive players. The play is going to move in the right direction when they're on the ice. Those Lightning teams also had Yanni Gourde. Like when you have those kind of players, it just takes the pressure off your other lines, right? And I think that's like, to your point, you just got to have it so that all your eggs are not in one basket, so to speak, which is what they have right now with Geeky and Pastrnak. They're their 2 highest scorers. And since trading Marchand, that has been, it feels like 60% of their entire offense, if not more, has been from those guys. And so, when you factor that in, like, you got to get more balance there, right? And yes, they need high end talent. They just need talent, though. Like, look at their top 9. They probably need to bring in 3 or 4 pieces to that top 9, which is a lot. I understand, but like, that's where they are right now. You got to find those guys internally, which is what you hope for with Minten and Lysell. But if not, you got to go out and get them and acquire them through trade, draft, signing, like whatever it is. But like, their top 9 is just a mess right now. And what's funny? Like you mentioned, like Neil Pionk, right? Like, that's also a need for this team, is a right shot D. Like, so you're entering the offseason with $33 million or whatever in cap space, and you're like, okay, spending spree. Yeah, but you got to tackle D at some point too. What do you do there? How do you address that? And so, a lot of holes, but I think, to what we've talked about, a lot of them are up front. It's just, you got to bring in representative NHLers. That's what you need right now. Guys that, you need 3 guys that can, you need 1 guy that can score 35 or 40. And behind him, you need 2 or 3 that can score 20 to 25. Like, that's where they are right now. It's kind of wild.
Easy.
Yeah, those guys just come up. They're all available. And,
by the way, we're still turning the cap off, right?
Yeah, we're turning the cap off, and you're the only team that got the cap increase. Don't worry. No one else is bidding for these players either.
Oh, right. Yes. Well, maybe not Carolina. They're having a good day with not spending any money at all. So.
Oh, they're. You know what's funny? If Carolina could spend money, if they would spend money, they're a team that I would look at with Brad Marchand. You're telling me Rod Brindamore and Brad Marchand would be a match made in freaking heaven. Those guys would love each other, especially get Marchand and Jarvis on a line together. Great line. That could be a great line.
Great post-game quotes too.
You're going to be a GM. That is probably my favorite. If you guys haven't seen it, by the way, Seth Jarvis was asked about Kevin Adams because he passed him on some sort of record in Carolina history. And they asked Seth Jarvis if he's going to be a GM when he's done playing. It is one of the best answers you'll get from an NHL player this year. Please go on YouTube and look it up. It is so funny. It got me really good when I saw it.
Yeah, everyone, please, after you're done with this podcast, please look it up because it is hysterical. Seth Jarvis, good player, good quote. Ty, before we let you go, where can we read your stuff? Where can we hear you on the airwaves? All that good stuff.
Yeah, you can find me at 985thesportshub.com. You can also hear me on 985 The Sports Hub every Saturday morning, the hockey show, 9 to 11 a.m. A lot of calls today. We had to do like a lightning round at the end, so sorry if I got panicked and was loud. I just wanted to make sure everyone was heard. We only got 2 more shows, by the way, before the end of the season. We're not going to do it into the off season. So April 19th will be our last hockey show of the 2024-25 season. So tune in, call in, do whatever you want. Also find me on social media at _Ty Anderson. Also on Blue Sky, just type in Ty Anderson. I come up for sure. And where can we find you, Connor, besides Fenway Park on opening day?
Yes, I am all over the place these days. You know what? It's good the Red Sox seem like they're actually going to be exciting this year. Thank God. Like, give us something to watch in the summertime at least. So that's at least a positive. You can read my stuff over at Boston.com and the Boston Globe. We have covered every step of the way this Bruins season, and more importantly, into the offseason. We have covered with looking at the draft, free agency, trades, office sheets maybe. I'm sure we're going to talk about that at some point this offseason, so get ready for that. And you can find me on Twitter, X, whatever you call it these days. I don't care. At Conor Ryan _93. Ty, thank you once again for talking hockey with us. This was episode 318 of Poke the Bear. You fans have a great rest of your week.